Wow, good morning, everyone. Look at you. It's beautiful to see you here. Thank you. Um, we've had a lot of conversations about AI in these last few days. Thank you, Super AI, for creating this opportunity for all of us. Thank you, dear panelists, for all the insights we've exchanged in the last hour or so, kind of building up for what's going to happen on stage. So, AI, the next big thing, there's been a lot of hype. This shift that it's happening, it reminds me of past technology revolutions, mobile, the internet, social media, I don't know. AI is supposedly the next big thing, and I cannot wait to discuss about it with you today. AI is fundamentally reshaping industries in different ways, creating opportunities, posing significant challenges. And our goal today here is to understand what is happening across the industries, where are the opportunities, where are the challenges, what works, what doesn't work, and learn from you all. We have with us Sachin from McKinsey. Everybody knows McKinsey. He's an expert in AI strategy and implementations in consumer-related industry, has worked all over the world. He'll tell us a lot more about his experience. We have Peng from NTT. You saw they have a massive booth outside, right at the entrance. They are riding this wave of innovation, working again with companies globally. Diane, one of my favorite companies from Singapore. I didn't tell her this, but I think one of the Singaporean companies that's now going global, and it's making all of us proud. So welcome. I'd like to start to get your initial thoughts, maybe from a more personal perspective. What is AI to you? How do you use it? How do you think about it? Tell me about what you've seen in the last 18 months as people, and how has that changed your day-to-day? Diane, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, hi, everybody. It's glad to be here. So we started the journey of Patsnap 17 years ago, right here from Singapore, and now Patsnap is the category leader focusing on the global market. We serve primarily the innovators. So the primary user persona of our products are the R&D professionals and intellectual property professionals within the organization. So those are very critical roles in the enterprise, the R&D life cycle. In the last 18 months or so, we see so much exciting development in this space. Particularly, Patsnap provide information that's needed by these professionals to help them do better decision-making throughout the R&D lifecycle, all the way from ideation to commercialization. As you can imagine, this day-to-day decision-making by these people involves a lot of information gathering, analyzing data to find pattern that might lead them to the next opportunity. So there's vast opportunity in applying AI in that. So happy to share some experience today with the audience, some of the stories that we have with our clients and how they benefited from AI.
Exciting. Peng, how has it been for you?
Wow. Good morning, all. For me, I'm like the two sides of the same coin. Being a CEO of a company, I have to constantly think about over the last 18 months, what's the impact of AI? How do I choose to adopt it? How does it impact the organization as a whole? How do I now look at the talent issue? How do I look at the skill set? How do I look at the ROI around those things? So that's one side of me that is kind of looking at AI. on the other side of me, which is being a supplier or a tech company that's looking at solutions to help solve business problems, over the last 18 months, it has been one of the most exciting and the most dynamic times of IT that I've ever come across over the last 30 years. Every minute, there are some new things coming. Every second, there are use cases that are imaginations that the clients are challenging us across all the different sectors and segment of the markets that we serve. So, to me, the last 18 months, being looking at how to use AI, but at the same time, how do I actually propose AI solutions? So it's one of the most exciting times for me, right, and NTT as a whole.
What are the main industries you guys are focusing on?
Well, kind of across NTT, kind of across almost all the major key industries that are kind of looking at tech. So I'm talking about healthcare, looking at how we actually service that. We're looking at government agencies. We're talking about large enterprises that are cut across different segments. We're talking about banks. We're talking about financial services. So it's a whole gamut. I mean, we have a privilege of being one of the largest tech companies in the world, and in Singapore and across this region, that actually give us kind of market access and permission to work with close to more than 5,000 clients across the whole entire region. So, yeah, I would say it's kind of across the whole entire market segment.
Okay. So I think I'll just echo the sentiments from the existing panelists or other comments which were highlighted. Let me just give you a sense of where the observations that I have are coming from. So I lead McKinsey's technology and digital service lines. And as a part of that, I lead Quantum Black, which is a specialist AI implementation arm. The only work we do is with large-scale enterprises to kind of build AI solutions that are housed in their enterprise and which their organizations are looking to adopt. So for me, when you ask a question that, hey, how has the last 18 months been? I would say for that, if you look at the amount of excitement that AI has generated, especially after ChatGPT happened about 18 months ago, the amount of times AI has been highlighted in the CEO's agenda has increased by at least 80%, right? So, and this is something that I'm talking from a trend line from, say, 2015 onwards. Since 2015 to 2020, that trend line was largely flat, okay? So it's only the last 18 months where we have seen it shoot up, with a lot of organizations really thinking about taking this technology seriously and implementing it. At the same time, I don't think everything is very great, because when you talk to CEOs, they start asking, is this another technology which is going to come in, and I'm going to invest, and I don't have anything to show for it, meaning that I can't articulate what is the value that AI generates. And to be clear, these are all CEOs who have been investing in AI, not generative AI, but AI since 2016, 2017. They have gone through stages and cycles of investment, at least 2 to 3 billion, at least every year.
That's very interesting. I want to follow up on that. I want to talk about adoption. From a technology perspective, it seems we are moving very fast. From an industry perspective, are we keeping up with the pace? Or if there is the gap, where is that gap? Can you tell me more about that, and maybe how it's represented across industries or regions, if irrelevant?
So let me take the first pass at it, right? I think overall, I think the consumer adoption of this technology and these generative AI agents is significantly higher than industry adoption, okay? Because once you start going into industry, it's not only that you can just pick up and use the technology. There's so many risk guardrails. There is so much internal context that has to come into bear that industries have to take a very, very careful stance. Example, over the last, I would say, 18 months itself, I know that at least 80% of the companies that I know, or as we as a firm serve globally, have started doing generative AI copilot, proof of concepts. But you ask how many of them have moved from proof of concept to scale, less than 6%, right? So scaling, nobody has gone into scaling. Very few people have gone into scaling.
This reminds me of the early days of e-commerce when people were even afraid to use credit cards online, and there was this resistance, this lack of trust. People or the industry was resisting the transition. Are we seeing something similar right now, or do you think the industry is actually ready to ride the hype, but maybe has a few months, a year behind the technology advancement?
I think from the enterprise perspective, different industries engage and embrace AI at different pace. It's influenced by multiple factors. I think number one is whether do the industry see a huge opportunity of applying AI to optimize the process, or does the industry have a lot of data to be used to train the AI, therefore to benefit from AI? That's one force from the business side. And another very important force is the regulatory side. So some industries are more regulated by other industry. So for our space, fortunately, we serve, very interesting, we serve two buyer persona, the R&D people and the intellectual property people. And you can think about the persona, the characteristics are very different. So R&D people, inherently, they are the inventors. They like new things. So when ChatGPT come out, a lot of our customers from the R&D side is asking, what is Patsnap doing? How can we use AI? How can we use large language model to apply to our day-to-day work in terms of idea generation, in terms of optimize the experimentation, design, things like that. But on the other side, the IP people, because of the nature of the role, the work they do, they're more risk averse. So, however, they're still engaging AI. It's more kind of like driven by a formal, because if I do not use AI to streamline my legal work, for example, reviewing documentation or effectively using AI to search for information to validate the novelty of my client's ideas. These are the daily work of the intellectual property legal professionals. If we do not do that, and if my competitors are doing that, I'm at a disadvantaged position. So the drivers are different, but I would say in general, in the R&D life cycle, the key players, they are quite actively engaging and trying to understand how to apply AI.
Do you think this has changed in the last 18 months in a meaningful way? Or do you think this was a wave of innovation that the industry was already kind of leveraging for the last 10 years or so and is making a technological shift where it's worth it? Or do you see it as a more radical change and approach?
It's a great question. It's true that the industry in R&D space, people always been thinking about how do you use digital technology to accelerate the go-to-market for any new product. So it's always there. So in Patsnap's position, actually we've been using AI in the last 7-8 years, but recently we talk a lot about large language model. Before that, we built a lot of so-called small models using natural language processing to provide better semantic search, or using computer vision to have a precise OCR of the images embedded in patents, in literature, scientific literatures, so users can use a sketch of their idea to look for similar images and similar designs. So it's always been there, but the introduction of ChatGPT does push the awareness level so high that everybody start having a conversation about it. So 10 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago, our users are benefiting from all these small model AIs in their day-to-day work, but they may not be aware of it. They were like, oh, this is convenient, so I can quickly find the information, which took me 1 week before. Now I can do it within a few hours. But they don't really associate it with AI. But with ChatGPT coming out, everybody start talking about it. So I do think it's a radical shift.
I would add a perspective there, right? I think, for me, when you start talking about GPT and generative AI, for me, I don't look at it as a standalone technology. I view it as a continuum of improvements that have been happening for the last 7, 8 years, right? So the story with most of the large enterprises has been that they have been trying to implement AI in their frontline operations, in their frontline processes. They started realizing that they don't have the underlying platform and data in a place that you can implement these tools. But they have been investing slowly. Now suddenly Gen AI comes, and they're like, oh my God, this is a great technology. Let me start figuring out how my frontline can use it. They do a POC, but then they want to contextualize it to their environment and their organization. They realize, oh, my data platform isn't ready. My AI backbone isn't ready. If I want to implement any kind of, I say, risk guardrails, like on inaccuracy, hallucinations, any kind of ethics and bias, whatever you want to do, it's all written in text. It's not developed into technical controls, which are there on platforms. So, I mean, it's great to think about technology and drive proof of concepts, but when we start looking at whether enterprise itself is ready, very often the underlying platform is very immature.
That's very interesting. Benga, I want to go back to you and hear your insights as well about the pace of adoption you're seeing across industries, and maybe share with us some of the winning cases, the first use cases that are generating enough value for your customers, or that for your customers to engage, to give LLMs a try. And then we can come back to how the AI architecture is actually changing, and what's the role the LLMs can play in the overall architecture of an enterprise.
Yeah, I will kind of answer the question this way. I think since the pandemic, as our clients, customers have kind of embarked on the digitization journey, and look across the board, right? Be it the back office, the front office, and to the point being made by my Sachin that, hey, there's that conversational, that change of the experience and all that. We do see some of that, and it's a logical kind of wave towards that. But on the other hand, the question still left is what's the real value? What's the monetization of this compared to what we have done so far in pushing the agenda with the technology from a digitization standpoint? So I think that's one very clear question. While the business guys are all just like me, I'm challenging my organization, and our clients is the same, right? Today we have a lot of manual processes and then a bit of tech. And then in some functions, there's a bit of AI tooling that has started to emerge, be it in finance processes, be it in IT, be it in some of these AI ops that we kind of push through. But how do you kind of invert that pyramid? How do you now, over the next 3 years, make AI the basis, tech, and then people taking on the different type of jobs or different type of level of thinking and nature of the work has to change. So I think that part I'm starting to see across, not only just in Asia, but in Europe, in US, where we are taking industry use cases, be it in banking, looking at how the front end, applying conversational AI to engaging multi-channel kind of experience for our clients. Now they can engage the banks through not just, IVR, it can be text, it can be chatbots, so on and so forth, to even looking at how do you actually implement AI ops to help them to kind of increase the efficiency in operations. This could be in the area of SOC, cybersecurity, NOC, it can be NOC, it can be just a backroom function. So we are seeing quite a fair bit of adoption of those things. It's going to be very specific to kind of looking at what's the real business case they're trying to solve. So to me, those are what we see as some of those things. For some of the early adopters that we see, now they are challenged. The challenge now they are confronting with is sustainability. AI consumes a lot of power. How do you kind of still maintain that carbon green? How do you now continue to kind of have the carbon neutral being very much still part of the agenda, as well as how do you secure the enterprise as a whole? So we're kind of seeing those three things coming together in terms of not just the LLM, but also looking at the infrastructure to the point Sachin made, the platforms, and looking at it from a Gen AI stack standpoint.
I would add a couple of points here. Right? So number one is in terms of the areas that you highlighted. If I have to take an example to make it a bit more tangible, if you take software development as an area, which has seen heavy application of all the co-pilots that are coming through across all the agencies. When you do software engineering proof of concepts, you demonstrate significant improvements in testing speed, in application development, and so on and so forth. And these are roughly in the range of 25%, 30%, 35% improvements. Next, you go to the head of the organization, the head of the technology organization, and say that, hey, I have enabled your organization with this technology. We have implemented proof of concepts. You are saying that these are generating 25, 30% improvements. So can you take a target of reducing cost or either improving outcomes? Nobody signs up to that. Nobody signs up to that. Okay? So that is why once you start thinking about investments, the CEOs and the CFOs are like, how do we even realize any impact from here if people are not even willing to sign up? And the reason they're not willing to sign up is in order to capture that impact, it's not that you just enable your organization with this technology. You have to fundamentally change how your organization is structured. Which tasks are done by AI, therefore what skill sets would you need in the non-AI part of the organization? So that conversation is very different and requires reimagination, right? So that's number one. The second big part is, it is great to adopt AI, but very often, just like cloud adoption as well, people have started realizing that cost is going to be a big factor. These LLM services, et cetera, are very costly. And if they are not engineered correctly and not architected correctly, they kill OpEx budgets very fast. So from a CFO's perspective, they're like, okay, we need to apply cost control.
How are you guys focusing on creating value for your customers? I'm trying to understand this better. So from one side, there's a focus on efficiency gains, rationalizing cost, and seeing how much we can automate from the tasks that are currently done manually. So that's definitely one way to show value. Another way to show value is by expanding the use cases, thinking about the use cases that you could do that you couldn't previously, either because you didn't have the workforce or you didn't have the technology, and now those could become possible. So do you see a lot of the C-level team focused on what is next with this exponential perspective in mind, or do you see most of the C-level teams at the moment focused on efficiency gains and restructuring the organization in a way that this technology becomes more and more part of the day-to-day as a co-pilot across multiple functions? What do you see?
So I would say that if you look at AI value pool overall, right? I'd say roughly a third of that overall value pool is going to come from expanding existing analytics and AI use cases. Roughly 2/3 is going to come from reimagining the organization, reimagining the ways of working, and enabling the organization with co-pilots, right? So for CEOs, they're actually looking at both.
I'll add to that, experience. I think a lot of businesses today are struggling or wanting to kind of enhance the experience. We are moving to this experience economy. The loyalty to the brand is low unless you can really kind of keep the experience and up the game, right? So that definitely catch the eyes of the board level in the sense of, hey, if you are now going in there with a proposition at looking at how do you actually use AI to enhance the experience of them being, be it from a market, from a product, and so on and so forth. So to me, we see that one. Two, is to solve a talent crunch, especially in being able to say, look, in today's context, given the scale, given the explosion of IoT technology, so on and so forth, how do you actually help me solve some of the skill set gap? Especially we see this in level 1, level 0. How do you actually now, beside offshoring, beside using tech, is there a way to kind of make those things happen? So when you're going in there with a ROI case of solving a talent crunch and presenting that you can actually realize a savings, you definitely catch the eye. Second thing is when you're saying you're in there to kind of enhance the experience, you definitely get that dollar, right? The investment dollar.
Diane, how are you looking at it?
Yeah. I think from the C-level's perspective, most of the customers we meet, I would say they will adopt a very practical approach. Of course, I agree with Sachin that it is the AI shift requires a change of organizational structure, but that's such a big, risky decision for a C-level. So sometimes we see, but they also know that it is true, AI is proven to be very useful in some areas. For example, Google's AlphaFold, being able to design the 3D structure of how a sequence of amino acid fold that's really helps unlock the drug discovery, improve the drug discovery. So all these real case scenarios, giving the C-level people the conviction that it can be useful. So very often they will take step-by-step approach. So starting with the low-hanging fruit. For example, the area you are in, marketing, right? So marketing very much external facing, doesn't involve too much sensitive data internally. So that's an easier, lower-hanging fruit for any companies to start using AI to generate content for marketing, to do user profiling and all that. And also another area, the area we are in R&D, because the cost is so high, so the benefit is very lucrative, so they want to take the risk. So again, take example of one of our clients. Recently, we're doing this profiling on the public listed companies' R&D budget. So we look at the budget, see how companies are allocating the budget. About 40 to 80%, depending on the industry, of the budget goes to manpower. And out of that, maybe a third or half of that goes to staff doing data collection, people running experiments. So a lot of repetitive tasks there. All this can be significantly improved by AI. And that, to a big enterprise customer, is the saving of billions of dollars. So the reward is so high, they're waiting to take the steps.
How long does it take now to sign a POC or to convince someone to try the technology, to implement, to give the first use case a try? I'm curious if the hype helps, do you sign a contract after a first meeting, or actually it's not at all like that? You have to address quite a long list of concerns.
I think the business model among this panel are quite different. We're a SaaS player, so it's like off the shelf, ready to run. So one example, we're doing a POC with a multinational company in the chemistry space recently. So very quickly, they have built up this internal process by the IT team called risk profiling of a vendor. That runs somewhere from 3 to 4 weeks. And after that, they're ready to try Patsnap product because Patsnap's product is trained on data that's publicly available. We currently do not take any internal data from the customers, so the risk is very low. But I guess for McKinsey or entity, the situation might be different.
So for entity, I think what helps is that if you can go to your customer with a use case and says, right, all right, and generally we find that what clients are very open to a POC, provided if you can come with some use cases they have done, because you become someone that can actually help them to kind of overcome the initial hurdle or advise them, right, some of the pitfall and how to move. So generally it helps if you have a use case in your mind and then you go in there, then your lead time to kind of converting that ideation to some form of purchase order tends to be shorter. All right, if you're kind of going there with a blue sky, looking at some of the process, then sometimes it tends to take a little bit longer.
And what are some of the winning use cases that today we feel comfortable to advocate as LLM applications at the large. We talked about conversational commerce solutions. We talked about CS bots, I think, in the panel. What else are you guys seeing as use cases that have very high potential to transform industries with immediate adoption opportunities?
So I think I'll take the earlier question also, right? Because I was as soon as you asked that question, I was smiling because I was saying that the willingness for clients to sign a POC would depend on the commercials you give them, right? If you give them it's free to try, then they will sign up typically fast, right? But I think there is a bit of a difference between, as Diane was highlighting, for a SaaS solution versus a services play. If it's a SaaS solution, I think the numbers that you quoted, like 3 to 4 weeks in risk profiling, I think that is now. I expect it to increase. I expect that profiling to increase because people are starting to realize that there is so much more exposure of risk and so much more, so many new kinds of risks that people need to start governing and evaluating third-party solutions on. So that's number one. But for services, I think it's likely going to be like, if we have a use case that is very clear and you're willing to commit to be a success partner, meaning that I don't want from you a tech solution. If you are saying that this technology can generate $100 million for me, I'll give you a cut of the $100 million. Show me how to get it, right? So a lot of the work that we are doing is actually not only technology. For us, it combines technology, change management, adoption, platform engineering and retooling, and so on and so forth. Because all of those components are required to generate that 100 million. Technology alone cannot, and typically organizations have become savvy enough for that. Last thing on which areas that you were talking about, I think there is quite a big opportunity in software development side, which we have highlighted. The second area which we are seeing is around sales copilots. When I say sales copilots, it's copilots for contact center agents, field sales, any kind of agency-based sales force, where you can say that by adding a copilot, your sales organization has become a lot more effective and is seeing impact in terms of higher conversions or higher velocity of sales closure.
Thank you. We are almost running out of time, so I'd love to hear your final thoughts, your predictions. What's going to happen next? How do you think about the next 2 years versus the next 10 years? How do you think about the pace of adoption and the continuous advancements in technology? How this will come together?
I will speak from our industry, the R&D space. I'm very optimistic about the engagement, embrace of AI in R&D space. Very consistently, generally people agree that R&D, in terms of the function unit within an organization, is the area that where human creativity can be significantly amplified by the use of AI. Because throughout this life cycle, there's a lot of information gathering, a lot of decision-making, pattern recognition. So I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, I wouldn't be surprised to see most big enterprise customers' R&D function are at least partially embracing AI in their day-to-day work. So more autonomous experimentation, a better use of AI in terms of the discovery process. But in terms of another area that it's a challenge today, hopefully we'll see some progress, is explainable AI. Because nowadays AI, the discovery process kind of work like a black box. So sometimes our users like, oh, you're returning us some really interesting results. This is really useful, but how did you come to that? And AI couldn't explain. So I think this is a research area people are working on. And 10 years coming, I don't know. I think technology develops so fast. Maybe in 10 years' time, we will have a completely automated R&D process where human beings just give the objective function and AI can develop hypothesis itself, design the experiment, run the experiments with AI combined with robotics lab, and analyze the data, come to the conclusion. So 90% of work done by AI, 10 years, maybe, I don't know. But exciting to watch.
For me, I think the next 2 years, is going to be very exciting. But we're at a very nascent stage of AI. I'll give you one example, right? We have LLM in NTT, and one of those things I was trying to use. And my surname was a challenge to the LLM. It says, you know what, I can't pronounce your surname. It doesn't have a vowel. So I think we're at a very early stage of how AI is going to change, even though I think it's accepted norm now that AI is going to be the path and the direction to go. I know there are a lot of startups here, there are a lot of enterprises here. I think, big dollars, excitement, I think those are there. I guess my only word of caution is there are other surrounding technology, platform, tooling, consideration, security. Those are going to be the other areas that don't miss out on that, don't leave them out, because those are going to be the supporting infrastructure, the supporting element that needs to be there for AI to really change the world.
I would say I look at the next 2 years as with a sense of optimism, but with also clarity that there is a lot of heavy lifting to be done. Right? I think the next 2 years is when there is a golden opportunity for all AI enthusiasts to prove that this technology can really generate some value and to make it extremely clear. Like, this is the delta that has been generated. I think there are a lot of people who are enthusiastic about it. There are a lot of boards who are looking to really engage on this. And they are all hoping that by implementing AI in organizations, they can really see tangible benefit to shareholders as well. So I'm seeing next 2 years as a very, very critical piece for this room of AI enthusiasts. That's number one. 10 years down, I do believe that every industry that we know is going to fundamentally change. Because the way that a bank functions today, it will not be the way that it functions in like even 3-4 years down the line. The way that a telco operator functions today, it's not going to be the way a telco operator functions 3-4 years down the line. I think there's a significant shift coming across all industries.
That's an interesting note to end on. Thank you, everyone, for your great insights. Looking forward to continuing the conversation with all of you here today. And thank you once again.